So let's talk about something huge. We're diving into what happens when you combine two of the most powerful technologies out there: genetics, the very code of life itself, and artificial intelligence, our most powerful tool for making sense of complexity. And the mission they're on together? Well, it's one of the most important fights in all of medicine, finding cancer way, way before it ever has a chance to really take hold. I mean, just stop and think about that question for a second. What if we didn't have to wait for someone to feel sick? What if we could hear the very first faint whispers of cancer, long before it becomes a roar? The answer to that could honestly change everything we know about fighting this disease.
Because that's what it all comes down to, right? A race against time. For so many cancers, the single biggest thing that determines whether a treatment is successful isn't always the specific drug or therapy. It's just how early you start that race. And this right here is the heart of the whole matter. Finding cancer early isn't just a slight advantage. It's an absolute game changer. It means you have more options, the treatments can be less invasive, and most importantly, it gives you a much, much higher chance of survival. It's pretty much the holy grail of oncology. So the big question is, how do we get there? How do we get better at this? Well, sometimes the future doesn't arrive with a big, loud announcement. Sometimes it just shows up in a simple headline, a headline that connects the dots and points to a brand new way of thinking. And here it is. This is the headline from the Times of India that got us thinking. In just a handful of words, you've got it all: a major research institution, and the two technologies that are at the center of this whole revolution: genetics and AI. This is where it all starts to feel real. And that's the real question, isn't it? It sounds great to just say genetics and AI, but what does that actually mean? How do you get these two incredibly complex fields to dance together to create something brand new? Well, let's break it down. Okay, first things first, we have to start with the raw material, the source code. We're talking about genetics. This is the what in our equation, all those clues that are hidden deep down inside our own bodies. So inside every single cell in your body, you've got your DNA. It's this incredibly detailed instruction manual for you. Genetics is basically the science of learning how to read that manual. And in this case, scientists aren't just looking for big, obvious typos like a well-known cancer gene. No, they're looking for much more subtle clues, tiny patterns in how genes get turned on or off that might hint at a future risk. Here's a way to think about it. Picture your DNA as a library with billions and billions of books. Somewhere in that library, there's a book with a warning note tucked inside. The problem is, you have no idea where to even start looking. Genetics is like the map. It tells us, hey, forget all those other shelves. You only need to look at this very specific section of books. It makes the search manageable. But, knowing which books to read is only half the battle. You still need someone or something to actually read them and find that tiny warning note. And that's where the second piece of the puzzle, artificial intelligence, comes in. AI is the how. At its heart, the kind of AI we're talking about here is a pattern-finding machine on steroids. It can chew through amounts of data that would just completely break a human brain. And it can spot these tiny, complex connections and irregularities that we would just never, ever see. It's like being able to see the entire forest and every single individual leaf all at the same time. And that brings our little library analogy full circle. Genetics points us to the right shelf, to the right set of books, but the AI is like a super reader that can scan every single one of those books in a split second, looking for the biological equivalent of a single misspelled word, a subtle change that screams risk. That's a job no human could possibly do. So we've got the two main ingredients, the raw data from our genes and the incredible analytical power of AI. Now let's see what happens when you put them together and build a whole new way of detecting disease. So how does this actually work in the real world? Well, it all starts with collecting the genetic data, looking at those specific books we talked about. And it's not just looking for one or two genes, it's about mapping these broader patterns, like methylation, which is kind of like seeing which words in the book are underlined or highlighted. Then you let the AI algorithms loose on all that data. They search for these incredibly complex signatures that a person would never spot. And what they find can point to hidden risk factors, basically flagging someone's unique vulnerabilities before a tumor even thinks about forming. And that all leads to the final, most important step. It gives doctors the power to start targeted, proactive screening long before any symptoms show up. What this really represents is a complete flip in how we approach healthcare. We're moving from a reactive model, where we wait for someone to get sick, to a proactive one that's driven by data. It's the difference between the old one-size-fits-all approach and something that is deeply, deeply personalized to your unique genetic code.
And that's really the bottom line. This is a fundamental change in philosophy. The question is no longer just, does this person have cancer right now? The question becomes, what is this person's future risk of cancer? And what can we do about it today? That is a true paradigm shift.
And that leaves us with this one last massive question to think about. I mean, this technology is being sharpened on cancer, but the same idea could work for so many other diseases. As we get better and better at predicting illness, it forces us to completely rethink what healthcare even is. It's not just about treating sick people anymore. It's about keeping healthy people healthy in the first place. And that is a future worth getting excited about.